Good day. I'm Glenn O'Kray. I'm with the Dearborn Historical Community, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Through the Arsenal Gates. I hope to acquaint you through this program and other programs with people who have made history, are making history, and will make history. Today we have with us Councilman David Bazzy. And this is his last term, and we have valued him. He, like his mother, has been a straight shooter. So, tell us about growing up.
Well, I grew up over by the old Dadry Appliance in a what I would call a very blue-collar neighborhood. It was great growing up in Dearborn. Recreation was fabulous. I went to Ten Eyck, went to Stout, went to Etzel Ford. A product of, I think, was one of the most prestigious and excellent school systems during that time of growing up, and I was proud to grow up here. Had a great amount of influential teachers that I probably could name every one of my elementary school teachers. That's how, to me, how influential they were on my life growing up.
Who's the best teacher you've ever had in elementary or secondary school?
Well, it would have to be either Mrs. Park or Mrs. Allison Drini, and I think the two of them each had different aspects that I liked. Mrs. Park loved sports, so I love Mrs. Park, and Mrs. Allison Drini taught me a lot about being a first-generation immigrant from Italy, taught me a lot about what it meant to come over here and the work ethic that was required and why people wanted to come to this country. And so I think the two of them had a great deal of impact on my life growing up.
Very good. Were you a good student?
I was a good student. I wasn't a studious student, but I was a good student. How's that?
What were your grades? Average?
My grades were mostly A's.
Cool.
And H1s when I was young. And so school was, I had a mother that spent a tremendous amount of time with me, whether it was spelling and flashcards and learning times tables. My mom was, as you know, my mom was just a wonderful mentor.
Was she a dominant person? Was she the most significant person in your life?
Yeah, my mom was my by far characterized, I think, who I became. I picked up a lot of her personality traits, inclusive of, like, as you said, I try to be a straight shooter. I try to be, and my mother was that way, and so I think I picked that up from her.
When you were 12 years old, what did you figure out you wanted to do for a lifetime work?
I wanted to be Johnny Unitas.
Did you play football?
I did play football, yeah.
Were you good?
Yeah, I was good. I wasn't a good enough quarterback to be a quarterback, although I played quarterback in junior high. There were people that were better at the position than myself, so I switched over to playing defense, which I was more, probably fit my style of life better.
Okay. Were you a spoiled child?
No.
Okay.
No, there was no spoiled child in our family.
Okay. You had siblings?
I had a brother. He was older.
All right. What's your philosophy of life?
I think my philosophy of life is to try to be a person that's positive in everybody's life that you come across. Those that you can help, do so. Those that you can't, still try to be positive in everything that you do.
And similar to that question, what are your values?
Well, for me, God is first in your life, family is second, and then community is third. And so if those things are really, really important to me, and you try to measure up to those goals on a regular basis. It was interesting. I try to listen to morning mass every morning because I think it helps me to ground myself in a world. And today's, of all days, as I'm coming here, today's mass profile from St. Patrick's was, the reading was all about, from much who is given, much is expected. And so I think God gave me much. And so therefore, not only do I expect much of myself, but I expect that I give much back. How's that?
Very good. You first got into politics by running for the Charter Commission. Why did you run for the Charter Commission?
Because Mike Guido pestered me until I finally said yes. How's that?
Now, how did you know Mike Guido?
Well, Mike and I were friends from the days when my father helped Mike run for mayor. So my father actually started the Teamsters in the city of Dearborn with Joe Valeni and a lot of others back in Phil Ciccarelli back in the days before there was a union. And so in the 60s, I remember the garbage strike. I remember my father starting the union, all the meetings at our house. And so my father liked Mike when he was a council person, and when he decided to run for mayor, he engaged in his campaign. And that's where I met Mike. And subsequently, I went on the Recreation Commission and then on the Zoning Board when Mike asked me to move from the Rec Commission to the Zoning Board. And so that's how we knew each other.
Did you campaign for the Charter Commission?
I did not.
You just got elected because you're good looking?
I had more hair back then.
Tell us about the dynamics of being on the Charter Commission.
I learned a lot. I think that I have a philosophy that every day you should be learning. And the days you don't learn, you go backwards. So I'm a big believer of learning. And so I was able to learn from really good people like Deb Walling. I was elected as chairman from the members that are on the Charter Commission because the 9 members then choose who the chair is. And so I was voted in as the chair, and I took that position as I do in all positions, really seriously. And I think that I learned a lot about what the city constitution was better than I had known before, how it lined up to the state constitution. We did things that I think helped us, and we did some things probably that I probably would have changed going forward, some adjustments that were made. But I think overall we put out a good product, and it was passed. We did it in 2 years. It was passed overwhelmingly by the citizens, so I felt good about that.
Anything that you think should be changed in this upcoming charter review?
Now, there's a few things that probably need to be changed, but I'm going to leave that to the charter group to figure it out.
Oh, now, you ran for city council how many times?
3.
And how did this develop? How did you run the first time?
Well, we were in the depth of a economic, I will say, if it wasn't a depression, it certainly was one of the severest recessions that we've seen since the Depression in terms of what the economies were in Dearborn. And I looked around and I saw a lot of vacant stores and storefronts. I saw a community that looked to me like it was lacking direction. And I figured that my background in business would at least help the city in the economic climate make some decisions going forward, and that's why I ran.
Has it been enjoyable? Has it been stressful? Has it had its highs and lows? Or what would be your general assessment?
All the above. How's that? Yeah, it's been enjoyable. I've met a lot of good people being on the council. I have some good friends and relationships from being on the council, both on it and department heads and in the community. So I think it engaged me in areas of the community that I wouldn't have been engaged in. I think that's, some of that background came from being on the Rec Commission where we redeveloped Ford Woods Park on a drawing that I actually did in a car ride with Mike Guido.
Yeah.
And
that's a significant item
yeah,
there.
A second ice rink and basically a structural redesign of what Ford Woods was to what it is today. So I felt good about that. Zoning board, I felt good about being on the zoning board. We were in a key time for redevelopment that had occurred a lot on Warren Avenue and in East Dearborn. Again, we made some mistakes. We crammed too many buildings into not enough parking. Some of that impacts neighborhoods. You look back and we probably should have looked at some other things different. And I'm an assessor always analytically of where we're at and what we've done to get better. Because I think you always have to look at what you did to see what you could have done better. And so I think on the council there are things that we did well and there are things that we could do better.
What don't you like about being on the city council?
The amount of time it takes in your life. It takes a lot of time away from your family. It takes a lot of time away from your individual personal time. You're aligned to meetings. If you're going to do it, my theory is do it right. Doing it right means you've got a lot of work outside of the boundary of the meetings. The meetings are a small portion of what you spend. The 100 meetings a year, that's nothing compared to the outside stuff and the amount of emails that you get in the communications with individuals. So I think just time.
And then week, how many hours would you say you spend on council activities?
I would say I spend probably 20 hours a week doing a part-time job. In fact, I told someone, this is the lowest paying per hour job I had since I worked as a bathhouse attendant up at Ten Eyck.
And
that was $1.35 an hour.
Yeah.
And by the way, at least then there were young girls, and I was appreciating it a lot more back then.
Yeah. Very good, very good. How are the dynamics on the city council? Describe them.
Well, I think that you have a diverse group of 7 different people that have come from 7 different backgrounds. And I think that the role of being a city council person is the responsibility is to be able to get things done, not get what I want done. You have to set aside your own agenda, because when you ran, you didn't run on your agenda. You ran on a community agenda. And so doing things for the community. So you're constantly reevaluating and trying to get things done. And for me, it's not about getting what I want. It's about trying to get things done for the community and move forward. And I think that my role in that has been fairly clear in terms of meetings, about trying to stay on topic and on point, and then trying to make sure that we're accomplishing something.
Do you ever get bored going to meetings?
I hated the Zoom meetings.
Okay.
I didn't think they were effective. I'm not a huge social media fan, and I thought Zoom was just a upward step of social media.
Anybody in the years that you've been on council you didn't like?
No, I think that like is fickle. So I spend a lot of time about trying to have respect for where people come from, and I try to stay away from the like and dislike. I think that's that's way too fickle, and I hopefully have left that portion of my life way behind.
I'm going to return to your question about your 12-year-old David thought. What did you think you wanted to do other than being a football player?
I like every 12-year-old. I think that probably I remember in 4th grade writing that I wanted to be president of the United States. And but I really always had wanted to be Johnny Unitas. Even when Joe Namath beat him, all right, as a 10-year-old, I still wanted to be Johnny Unitas. I love sports. I grew up in a sports-related family. I can remember playing tackle football with my brother in the backyard every day. He was bigger and more physical than me, but that didn't stop us from playing. And so, yes, I really wanted to be an athlete.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't know if I was dedicated enough or good enough to succeed. It's hard to say. It's the truth. And so I never imagined myself going into the steel business, but that's where I ended up.
Yeah. Give me your sentiments on the updating of the historic district.
I think there's a place for managing history. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation going around on what that means and doesn't mean. I think that you don't want to ever lose what you were, and you never want to forget what history did, because those who don't study history correctly and the real history are doomed to repeat the failures of history.
Very good. Tell us about the floods.
Oh boy, the floods were a devastating impact on this community and multiple other communities. And by the way, there's areas worldwide where flooding has occurred at extreme levels. And I'm not a climatologist, so I don't try to be something I'm not. But it seems to me that the concept of 100-year rains is no longer a concept to be communicated. Instead, these events that occur, these significant rainfalls that occur, are more apt to happen. And unfortunately, where Dearborn sits in the system and the age of the system and a gravity-fed system leaves us more vulnerable to flooding. And there are temporary things we can do to alleviate that in some areas, and there's long-term solutions that have to be made. All right, they're just long-term solutions where you need the Army Corps of Engineers to come in and redesign the Rouge offall and watershed area so that communities that are downstream, like ourselves, aren't the ones that are most impacted by the heavy storms.
In the short-term fixes,
there are some fixes that we can do to reduce and change flow structure. We've talked about, people don't want their street to flood, but if your choice is street flood or basement flood, everyone will take a flooded street. And so if we can reduce flow structure into the system and discharge into the system, and instead let have in 4 or 5 inch or 3 inch rainfalls some street flooding occur until the system works its way down and it doesn't end up in the basements, we can win for the community.
Yeah, very important issue. Now, how did you become head of your company?
I had worked for another company. I had been offered a couple jobs out east. My wife didn't want to move. And you stay married by listening to your wife. And so,
that's the deal.
You do, and respecting her opinion. How's that?
Okay,
Which is more important, the respect issue.
Yeah.
You married because you're in love, and you stay married because you respect. And still love, but respect as well. But I think that, at Kenwall, I was hired in as a vice president. They really didn't have an idea. The company was kind of struggling at the time. It was in Detroit. It was a small company. And I remember sitting in a meeting at the time with the chairman, and I said, okay, what is your 5-year and your 10-year plan, and what's the plan here? And he looked at me and he said, well, the plan is to make money. I go, well, that's not a business plan. I said, a business plan is one that you envelop where you're going, and if you do what you're supposed to do and you align what you do effectively, then you do make money. And he basically said, well, figure it out. So I did. And I went to the group that was the most effective, sat down with the team members and started incorporating where we thought we should be and what we could do. Hired some key people. And I think the key to being a good leader is to understand when to let people do their job and when to help them when you need to, and when you mentor and when you don't mentor. And so we grew this company from basically a company that did 10,000 tons a month to a company that did 110,000 tons a month.
Oh, that's significant.
And it was all organic growth. We didn't buy anyone. We became one of the largest big independent service centers in the country, and we're still growing. As I said to someone yesterday, we were talking about an issue, and he said, I probably should have done that. I said, it's about learning. I said, and every day you learn, or you become less effective. And so and he said, well, that's really, he goes, I appreciate that. I said, I'm not here to berate someone for mistakes made. I'm here to understand your thought process and then how we think as a team to get better. So that's what we did. And we really became probably one of the premier service centers and steel manufacturing companies in North America.
So who do you sell to?
Well, we sell to Ford, we sell to Stellantis or Chrysler or FCA or whatever, the new name, Stellantis.
Yeah.
We sell a lot to the seat manufacturers, so probably every single car you're in has our steel. Because whether it's Lear, Adient, Faurecia, Brosia, Cameco, we're shipping steel to all of them, for track steel, where we do unique things in terms of advanced high-strength steels for lightweighting. We engaged in that early on with the Swedes, SSAB, partnering up with them on advanced high-strength steels. So we support them in this arena here, and we support a lot of the light gauging of material and weight reduction in the interiors business.
How many dollars worth of business do you do a year?
Well, right now the price of steel is at record highs. We'll be over $1.2 billion in sales, but okay. I never worry about. The thing I'm proudest of is that in 38 years of manufacturing that I've been there, we've never lost money. And in manufacturing, that's really hard to do.
Excuse me, how many years?
38.
38. And you were hired in as vice president?
I was.
Wow.
I was young.
Very good, very good. Now, returning back to the Charter Commission for a minute, can you tell me what advice you would give to the members of the Charter Commission?
I would think the first thing you have to do is once you get in, make sure you read and really understand the old charter, understand why it was written the way it was written, and then if you're looking to have an impact or put a footprint in there, look at the community and figure out what they want, not what you want.
Did you have a hassle selling the charter?
Not really. No, I think there were things we left in because sometimes politically you're not going to get them passed. We took out a lot of things that were effective. There were things that in certain arenas that probably would have created a greater backlash or a greater amount of, I think, community or certain groups coming at you. And so some of those things we decided that at the risk of the greater good, we talked about making decisions, the greater good of the whole charter versus small pieces, we left those alone.
Yeah, my view is half the job is writing the charter, the other half is selling the charter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you have to know you have to know what you're at in the community. I mean, there are things that you don't have to worry about, like staffing, like minimum staffing. So you don't have to worry about minimum staffing in this charter, right? Because given the state constitution, if the charter is updated, minimum staffing goes away.
However, if the charter is not approved, then minimum staffing stays
grandfathered in with the old charter.
Yeah. All right, talk about taxes for a minute here.
One of my favorite subjects.
What's the answer?
The answer is a redo of Headley. I mean,
that's probably not going to happen.
But that's the answer, because it isn't. What happens is that because you had a full collapse of taxable value, both on the commercial side, with the residential first, and then 3 or 4 years later on the commercial side. And so a taxable dollar became significantly less, right? In the 30 to 40% less, and your cost structure didn't go away. So your pension obligations and your post-healthcare obligations, they didn't go away, and your need for staff, although it was reduced significantly, with significant staff reductions comes significant abilities to give the community what they're looking for in services, right?
Yeah.
Walk into a store today and try to get waited on, right? What happens with no staff is you don't get waited on, right? Whether you're at a restaurant, whether you're at Home Depot, wherever it's at, you can't find anybody to go help you. People close early, they have less hours because there's less people. So in the cities, it's very similar. If you take people out, then when people are mad about, people want services. I don't think people care what they pay as long as they're getting something or perceive that they're getting something for what they pay. And part of the city's problem, I think, is we haven't shown effectively people what they're getting for their tax dollar. All right, we send out a calendar and it has all this nice quadrants, but it doesn't, for most people, it doesn't mean anything. It has to have visible numbers that mean something. And then secondarily, what happens is because home prices have escalated, new homeowners and people who are coming in and building new homes are bearing the brunt of this upscale tax structure at 62.4 mils that exist in the city. Now remember, the city tax is 15 mils, right? That's all it is, all right? The 15 mils is what we give. And then there's a 3.5 operating millage above there and a 1 mil, which was just renewed, library millage. And then the city assesses an additional 0.7 mils. So we're not in the worst range in the city point of the total millage. And even if you took 1 mil out or 2 mil out, it means a lot to somebody who's got a $35,000 tax bill. It doesn't mean anything to a person who's got a $4,000 tax bill. However, the service structure that may occur in that reduction of a 2 or 2.5 mil in the community will be significant. All right, and we could talk all about on what happened on the personal property tax replacement and how that comes back into the community. But we need a whole couple sessions, and I got to run to talk about that. And so, do I think taxes are too high here in this community? I think taxes are too high specifically for anyone buying a home today. And so we have to figure out a way to fix that. To me, the method of fixing that is to fix Headley, all right, which means some of the lower end taxes are going to go up and some of the upper ends are going to come down. It doesn't make sense that two houses next to each other, one built 10 years ago and one built today, have a difference of $15,000 in tax structure for the exact same amount of services. The guy who's paying $15,000 more isn't getting a better steak. Right? He's getting the same steak as the guy next to him.
Very good. Councilman Bazzy, I want you to tell the audience what you want people to think about you, say about you after you've gone to the next life.
I think what I would like to be thought of and remembered for is that I did my best, I tried my hardest, and then I tried to be ethical about what I did for each one, and that first and foremost, I always cared more about what we were going to do for the next generation than I cared about for what I was going to do for myself.
Very good.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the session. I wanted to continue, but this Councilman Bazzy has another appointment here. If you enjoyed the show, tell all your friends and relatives. If you didn't enjoy it, just keep it to yourself. Thanks for joining us. Very good. Thank you so much.